places like in Egypt, for example, that the Lord Jesus Christ himself visited. It is where Christianity, it is the cradle of Christianity. And so we do not want to leave our countries. And I think this is very important. But in some of the difficult situations that our people are suffering, then the international community, the Western governments need to lend a hand to be able to alleviate some of these difficulties. And also, I hope that our Prime Minister, Tony Abbott, when I hope he goes next month to the UN and to meet with President Obama and other world leaders, that this situation, this dire situation in the Middle East is brought to the forefront and that proper solutions can be found and not just lip service is given to this and nice words. We need action to be taken, and it needs to be taken very swiftly and promptly. We cannot continue to stand by and watch this injustice and this bloodshed to continue in the Middle East and in Iraq and in Syria. It is a great blessing for me to be with you today. Be assured of our prayers, that all of our churches are praying for you. All of our people, the Copts, are very concerned about your families and about all of the people in Iraq and Syria and what is happening there. And we will continue to support you in every way that we can. May God bless all of you, and glory be to God forever.
Is very tall. It is my privilege to introduce the next speaker. He was born in a village and actually grew up knowing my father. And he completed his studies in petroleum geology at the University of Baghdad, graduating with a Bachelor of Science in 1970 and a Master of Science in 1975, so he's very bright. Migrating to Australia in 1979, he initially worked as a petroleum geologist before establishing his own business in 1995. Now a member of the New South Wales Legislative Assembly, representing Smithfield for the Liberal Party of Australia since 2011, please welcome one of our very own and my dear personal friend, Mr. Andrew Rohan, MP.
بسم تنورا شلام الأخوان من دي قامة يبغينا من أخوان أنا even Australia at the same time in Australia بدوني in Australia in أبدانا هنا Australia إتلي خاي قارة بنطينا من تم كل أخوان كتنتي لاختي إديو وبوي متشابتم قم خارخ وخاتشة تشلن سيدني خاي قارة أجورة وكل أخوان عيتم بسيمة قدنا فاندريزنج تيتون وادي قد هيرخون كنواتن قطواتن جو أطرتنا بدار سنيقة بتخاتشة بمزمن دي إنجليسينا بفرم please. Friends, parliamentary colleagues from all sides of politics, state and federal, today's organizers, particularly members of the Assyrian Council of Australia, and every single person here today. Earlier, I just spoke in the Assyrian language, and I said, I'm proud Australian, but I'm also proud Assyrian. My children are proud Australians, and yet they are proud Assyrians. And I'm sure our Lord Jesus would have understood me when I spoke in the Assyrian language, because it was the same language he spoke, and that's the Aramaic. So there was no need for translation. I want to thank you. I want to commend you. And I want to pay tribute to each and every one of you for being here today, for participating in this peaceful rally at our federal parliament. We have come here today as human beings and as Australians to demand from our federal government immediate action to end the persecution we are witnessing of the Assyrian, Chaldean and Syrian Christians of Iraq. Christians in Iraq, where I have lived peacefully since the dawn of Christianity, do not have a voice. They can't protest, they can't say anything. But we are their voice. We will protest, and we will not rest until they are all safe. Since the end of Saddam Hussein's regime, the indigenous Christians have been the subject of unspeakable religiously motivated attacks, including rape, beheading, and crucifixion. Unfortunately, history is replete with atrocities committed against us. They have paid over and over again with their blood for the right to exist and for the right to have a say in their ancestral homeland. I have spoken many times on different issues relating to our Assyrian cause in the parliament, but I'll just read a few paragraphs I said in my first speech in the New South Wales Parliament, in my inaugural speech. I said in my first speech to the New South Wales Parliament, I said that my parents were among 90,000 Assyrian Christian refugees fleeing their ancestral homeland to escape persecution. My parents and other refugees were fleeing from the Ottoman Empire to escape what would later be known as the Armenian, Assyrian, Pontic, and Greek genocide. By the grace of God, my parents survived. Unfortunately, 2/3 of the Assyrians did not. Over 750,000 men, women, and children perished in what is the first genocide of the 20th century. And today, we are witnessing a new genocide against the indigenous Christians of Iraq. And although there are many similarities between the genocide from 1917 to 1921 and the genocide today, there are also unfortunate differences. In August 1933, the Iraqi government ordered the slaughter of Assyrian Christians in the town of Simele and its surrounds. And on return to Baghdad, the soldiers were welcomed as heroes. And today, the Turks are carrying out the murder of the Iraqi government are condemning the atrocities perpetrated against Christians at the hands of the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. ISIL terrorists have now established a caliphate, an Islamic state based on Sharia law in the northwestern Iraq and eastern Syria. They marked tombs of Christians with letter N. For Nazarene, which is reminiscent of the yellow Star of David that the Jews were forced to wear in Germany under Hitler. By marking letter N, the terrorists are declaring that such properties are lawfully available to be looted. Furthermore, the terrorists have issued an ultimatum to all Christians living in Mosul to convert to Islam, pay a religious tax, leave before the imposed deadline, or the sword is the only answer, implying they will be killed. These are thieves, these are murderers and cowards hiding behind their black masks like pure thieves in the middle of the night. There is only one way to describe the actions of ISIL terrorists. It is an act of evil. For the first time in nearly 2,000 years, no church bells rang and no masses were held in Mosul, courtesy of ISIL. Just as we have come here today to proclaim I'm a Nazarene, millions around the world have proclaimed I'm a Nazarene in support of the Christians of Iraq, although through their social media networks. Across the world, in the Americas, Europe, and Australia, we witnessed rallies on the TV and other media together with numerous fundraising efforts in support of our brothers and sisters in North Iraq. I was moved when I learned of the young girl from St. Helm's Assyrian School donated her lunchtime money to these refugees. I want to thank our Prime Minister, the Honorable Tony Abbott, for the strong support he has provided thus far. Australia has used its position on the United Nations Security Council to take steps to block the financial supply to ISIL. Australia has also donated $5 million in humanitarian aid to the refugees displaced in northern Iraq and allocated 4,400 urgent visa places for Assyrian, Chaldeans, and Syriac and other communities such as the Yazidis. But we have come here to ask for more from our Australian government. As the chairman of the Parliamentary Friends of Assyria and the New South Wales Parliament, I requested a meeting with our Foreign Minister, and I'm happy to say she accepted our invitation, and representative from the Assyrian Council of Australia and 2 humanitarian organizations, together with myself and some staffers, we attended that meeting this morning. It was very successful, and she promised us that further action, and they'll look into these interests for the future. And also I want to thank some of my parliamentary colleagues for organizing these meetings with us here today. We also have come here to demand our government immediate intervention by the United Nations to provide protection for the Christian communities of Iraq. We have come here to demand the promised safe haven for the indigenous Assyrian, Chaldean, and Syriac people of Iraq in their ancestral homeland in the Canberra Plains as a self-administered region protected by the United Nations and the free world. I'm going to read to you the 3 demands that were included in the letter we wrote to our Foreign Minister. 1. That the Australian government urgently provide humanitarian assistance to the Assyrian, Chaldean, and Syriac Christian refugees displaced in Iraq by providing direct financial aid to the non-government organizations that are on the ground and assisting the refugees in northern Iraq, in particular the Assyrian organization and the Assyrian Aid Society. Any aid provided to the national governments of Iraq and Kurdistan will not probably reach the Assyrians in northern Iraq refugees. Furthermore, number 2, that the Australian government utilize its position on the United Nations Security Council to call for an immediate intervention by the United Nations to establish and administer an internationally protected safe haven for the Assyrian, Chaldeans, and Syriac Christians of northern Iraq. History records that these communities will not be protected by the Iraqi national government or the Kurdish regional government. Facing genocide, only the international community can ensure their survival. An internationally protected safe haven will act as a beacon of hope and draw back Assyrian refugees currently displaced in Iraq and in neighboring countries. 3, and finally, there are Assyrians and Chaldean and Syriac Christians in Iraq that are willing and able to defend their homes and families. So to this end, they are pleading with the international community to provide them with the basic armaments and training to support them in their fight against terrorism. This request is supported by the Assyrian representatives in the Israel-Iraqi government, who have called on the creation of an Assyrian force that is funded by the central Iraqi government. I thank the organizers for inviting me here and for organizing this fantastic opportunity to raise our voice here in Canberra to our federal government, and thank you for attending.
Thank you, Mr. Han. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I know that you're being a bit restless, and we've been doing all of the talking for quite some time now. So we'd like to break up the format a bit and get back to be a bit vocal and get chanting again. So I'd like to call up onto the stage to lead the chants. Nahanan, get your chant sheets ready, and let's get the parliamentarians to hear our demands.
نقرم مقرياته بين يطيتنا قد خزيتنا كليت الضوء بمدان انطلقت مرميتهم قالوخن مرميتهم قالوخن قد ني أمتن تنا إديو يوم بيش الظلمة جو أطرد أو هاتن